I'd like to welcome you to another Q&A. Many people ask why we here at this ministry observe the Old Testament feast days. They assume that these days were done away long ago through the sacrifice of Yahshua the Messiah. Is this true? What do we find in the Bible? We know that these days were commanded by our Father in heaven in the Old Testament. One thing to note is that these days are not called the Feast of the Jews, as many believe, but Yahweh says that these are my feasts. The fact is, these days belong to Yahweh and not to no one group of people. Now, in addition to what we find in the Old Testament, we know that many of these days were observed by the Messiah and his apostles in the New. Here's just a few examples. In Matthew 26 and Mark 14, we find that Yahshua observed the Passover. In John chapter 7, we also see that he kept the Feast of Tabernacles. In the second chapter of Acts, we also find that the apostles observed the day of Pentecost, or the Feast of Weeks. The Bible also shows that the apostle Paul observed the Feast of Unleavened Bread and Pentecost in Acts chapter 20. In addition, Paul encouraged the Corinthian assembly in 1 Corinthians 5 verse 8 to observe the Feast of Unleavened Bread. We also find evidence for feast observance in the coming kingdom. Ezekiel 45 refers to the Passover and the Feast of Tabernacles. Matter of fact, Zechariah chapter 14 verse 16 states that the Feast of Tabernacles will be a requirement in our Father's kingdom for all nations. This says here in Zechariah chapter 14 verse 16, "And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall go up from year to year to worship the King Yahweh of hosts and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King Yahweh of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. And if the family of Egypt go not up and come not, that have no rain, there shall be the plague wherewith Yahweh will smite the heathen that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. This shall be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all nations that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles." Well, as we see here, not only will the Feast of Tabernacles be observed in the millennium or the kingdom, but all nations will be required to observe this special time, including the families of Egypt. According to the prophet, those who refuse, they will be punished by the plague of no rain. In the kingdom, keeping our Father's feast may mean the difference between life and death. Well, I pray that this word has been a blessing to you, and as always, we would encourage you to prove all things and hold fast to that which is good. Until next time, may Yahweh bless. Bye-bye.